Good morning. Welcome back to the Red Mic. Happy Friday. Hashtag Fun Friday. Red Mic messages are leadership and life lessons from 25 years as a public servant, 16 years as a youth football coach and scouting volunteer, and 10 years as a mediocre athlete with far more heart than actual physical ability. Today's Red Mic message on this hashtag Fun Friday: why don't kids ride bikes anymore? When I was a kid, bikes, they weren't just transportation, they were freedom. And inevitably, we'd end up with friends. We weren't just riding down the street. We were exploring. We were stuntmen. We were kings of the cul-de-sac. And we'd build wobbly bike ramps out of plywood or really anything we could find that was sturdy. And we'd launch ourselves, we thought sky high. Now, this was the 80s, of course, and in the back of our heads, we were all, Evel Knievel, jumping the Snake River Canyon, although on a bike instead of on a rocket cycle. If you haven't seen that, look it up. It's funny. But also look up on YouTube some of the stuff that Evel Knievel did, man, on a bike. I think he broke almost every bone in his body at one point or another. Anyway, that's who we thought we were, man. And we'd go launching off of these ramps and no helmets, no second thoughts. We were cruising the roads and the alleys like we were our own versions of Hex Angels. Yeah, that was a little kid version of Hell's Angels. We weren't a motorcycle gang in the traditional sense. We were just out having fun. Did we feel a little bit like outlaws? Maybe, but we never got in trouble because we didn't do anything bad. I mean, we didn't pack lunches or even water. I mean, we survived on neglect and hose water. I've said that more times than I can remember. And when we weren't on our own bikes, we'd identify with stuff in pop culture. Elliot and E.T. flying across the silhouette of the moon, the grit of the cutters in Breaking Away. I mean, these were all stories that turned riding a bike into symbols of freedom and courage. But the world has changed. We don't have that freedom anymore. At least we don't let ourselves have that freedom. And the rest stat that in the 1990s, 20 million kids rode their bikes regularly. Just 2 years ago, 2023, that number had been cut in half. Now, it's easy to blame screens and video games and smartphones, and I'm sure that all plays a part. Kids are far less active than they used to be. But there's more involved. I've said this before. There was a movie in the late 80s called Adam, story of Adam Walsh, and it scared the heck out of parents. And I think that's where a lot of this helicopter parent stuff started. And even though neighborhoods have gotten faster and busier, there's still plenty of places to ride a bike. And I think parents know that, but they use that partially as an excuse. So they get their kids to ride less, or sometimes they don't even teach their kids to ride a bike. They feel the pressure to hover, like that helicopter parent description, instead of just letting go. And so the bikes, even if they exist, they just gather dust. They don't get ridden as much as they used to. And that's not just a childhood loss, that's a community loss. Riding a bike teaches more than just balance and speed. It teaches independence. It builds resilience. It teaches you that when you fall down, you get back up, because otherwise you're going to be stuck somewhere, and who wants to push a bike around? It gives kids a taste of freedom that helps prepare them for bigger challenges later in their life. Research backs me up on this. When kids play outside, when they're visible and active in neighborhoods, parents feel safer, neighbors feel more connected, and whole communities become stronger. Say what you want about HOAs. I think in this regard, HOAs are doing a service, because different parts of the day, man, some of our HOA neighborhoods, they look like ant farms that have just been knocked over, and you see the things going everywhere. That encourages people driving through the neighborhood to be more mindful. They drive slower, they pay more attention, but also it gets these kids interacting, building their circle, so to speak. And again, it makes parents feel safer, neighbors feel more connected, and it makes your community seem smaller and stronger and more integrated. And it's something as simple as a kid riding a bike that can make the whole thing better. Last weekend in Wichita Falls, thousands of riders showed up for the Hotter Than Hell 100. That's my hometown. I'm proud of it. I never rode in the Hotter Than Hell. I worked it several years with my fraternity. One of my fraternity brothers, the late Jason Christie, great guy. His dad was the grand poobah of the Hotter Than Hell. Well, anyway, it's one of the toughest cycling events in the country because, as the name would imply, it's Texas in August and it's going to be hotter than hell, usually. There have been some years where it's, the lukewarm 100, but 100 miles on a bike in Texas heat, that's not for the faint of heart. But that kind of discipline and endurance and grit, it doesn't come from nowhere. It starts, I think, as simply as the kid getting out on their own, riding a bike and going as far as they can. So here's a challenge for you. Dig the old bike out of the garage, lube up the chain, air up the tires, take your kids or grandkids outside and teach them the basics, remind them the rules of the road, and then let go. Let them ride. Let them scrape a knee. Let them fix a flat. Let them ride their own path. Let them find the way to go. Because in a world where everything feels overscheduled, overprotected, that simple act of riding a bike might be the best gift of freedom you can give them. And then they're going to become independent. They're going to become bold. And yeah, they might set up a rickety ramp and scare the heck out of you, but let them do it. So push them, keep them from falling as long as you can, but then let go and let them go on their own two wheels under their own power. And that's today's Red Mike message. I hope you found it interesting or helpful. I hope you'll give me a like, a follow, and a share. I appreciate you guys so very much. Thanks for being here. I did decide I probably will pepper a few more wooden things in to the Red Mike messages, but Monday, Labor Day, I'll have a celebration of the holiday of sorts, and I'll bring you some news from my own life. So I appreciate you being here. Don't forget, life is short. Drink the bourbon. I'll see you next time. Have a good weekend.